Peace, this is Casabez again with another episode of the Meridian World News Critical Eye. This is volume 2. Today we're going to be talking about some of the conspiracies. Before we get into conspiracies, I just want to make a note of a trend that I noticed over the last few years, just observing social media. And it seems that we are more and more getting comfortable, more and more getting lazy with our processing of information. I notice people sharing links, sharing things based on their headlines without reading information, commenting, liking, sharing information without reading or watching the information. It's just based on a headline. The headline can say anything. People don't go look and see what the headline is about, what really the content is about. You see, everything seems to be more about sensationalism, and we jump from one sensation to the next. You know, people got bored with COVID for a while, then, George Floyd happened, and now we're back to COVID again. What will be the next distraction for people? I'm noticing that there's this lack of critical thinking, and I'm really trying to address this issue by speaking up, trying to give some different perspective on things that are happening nowadays. So hopefully you can look at it through that lens. When COVID-19 became a big concern across the world, when the World Health Organization declared it an international pandemic, that was based on some data that had been collected based on, places that had the most exposure to the disease. That was based on data that at the time was very limited, and it was based on projections that had been calculated and published around that same time in mid-March that were talking about how many people were projected to die from COVID. It was based on models, which were based on limited data and computer.
Are we confident?
Go.
Are you going to read?
Yes. And based on very limited time frames, they're generating this data and presenting this information to the public as if it's a fact of how many people are going to die who become affected, how many people are going to become infected from each person who, gets the disease, and so on and so on. The transmission rates and death rates, all of this was estimated and known to be estimated. They kept saying over and over, we don't know what's happening with this disease. We don't know where, we don't know really how it spreads. We don't know how to treat it. We don't know this. We don't know that. We don't know this. We don't know that. We need to be careful. Months later, now there's much more data available, and yet where are the new projections? Where is the new data being presented to the public? Where is the new information? Because there is information out there abundantly on treatments different doctors have used that have worked, or different natural healers that have used that have worked. There's data about, the death rates and transmission rates to say, is it as deadly as they thought it would be initially? All of this data is available. Let's say more data is available. It's not to say that everything right now is conclusive, but there's much more data available. However, like I was mentioning before, this mental laziness seems to take over, and people don't continue to look into it. People go with their first impression of how the disease appeared to them when they first were introduced to it. They don't go based on, an evolving perspective based on new information that continues to come out. Some people have, a lot of people I've been talking to have disagreed with my perspective on this, on the pandemic, on the different factors that I keep trying to share with people that can contribute to, why maybe so many people have been dying. And people, as far as they're concerned, just the fact that people are dying, they don't need to ask any more questions. This approach to me is very, you know, dangerous because we don't know how long, like I just was watching a report by a brother of mine who had was talking about the fact that, they're reopening schools in the UK and they're having students, social distance in the school. They're having to wear masks the whole day. And again, some people are saying, hey, some people are sharing the fact that, or the idea that masks might actually be harmful to your health to wear them. And they're like, oh, well, you just have to wear them for 20 minutes to go to the store. What's there to think about? But you see people walking down the streets with masks, whatever, if they want to do that, it's fine. But some people, just to go to work, they have to wear a mask all day, maybe 8 hours straight. They have to wear a mask, having to wear a mask at school, having to social distance at school. Kids can't touch each other, having to spray chemicals to sanitize their desks, multiple times, like every couple of hours, things of that nature. Social distancing, even on the playground, the kids have to play within confined circles and they're not allowed to leave their circle. It's very alarming that this is what's being promoted as a new normal that we should get accustomed to for a disease that, again, has been said over and over, oh, we don't really know how dangerous it is. But everyone just assumes that, oh, people have been dying. They say it's from COVID. So it's dangerous. We need to avoid it. Well, again, when we live in a world of conspiracies, and when I say conspiracies, I'm saying we live in a world of people who make decisions behind closed doors about what to do with the public. And most of the time, those decisions are not made in the public interest. I dare anyone to challenge me on this statement. You cannot deny that there are people who are making decisions and basically destroying the lives of the poor in the name of trying to gain more power or whatever their agenda might be. I don't even know what it is, but whatever the agenda is, there are people. These conspiracies are real. You see. Now, as far as the conspiracies regarding COVID, it's very interesting because every time you see a movement happening, there's always a counter movement to the movement. Generally, you'll see, for example, I'll just use COVID as an example. When you have people who are, saying, oh, we need to lock down, we need to shelter in place, we need to socially distance, and so on. You have at the same time groups of people who are saying, well, we're not sure that's a good idea. That doesn't sound like a good idea. What is the agenda happening here? At the same time, you have stories coming out. Stories about like 5G is the real cause of, and there's no actual virus. You have stories coming out about, oh, one story was Wuhan, China was the origin of the disease, and it came from bats. Somehow they decided that it came from bats very early before they had time even to really, figure it out. All of this they're talking about, they don't know, and they're saying it came from bats. How do you figure that out so quickly? And at the same time, there's this Wuhan lab of virology that's very close by that so-called, the market where the so-called outbreak happened. More data came out to show that it probably didn't come just from those bats. Because some of the first reported contacts or people infected by the coronavirus were not in contact with that particular market. Well, all of that in China, in a country that is known for its cover-ups of its affairs in the country and lying to its citizens and lying to the world. It's very difficult to imagine we'll get an accurate picture of exactly what happened, exactly where the origins of the disease are. Again, you have other people saying that, oh, there's no disease, or that, viruses don't kill people. You have all types of different ideas being promoted now. And what's interesting is that, you know, at the same time, while you have, all of this information coming out in support of locking down, you have information coming out that's, promoting these conspiracy ideas, but we don't know where this information is really coming from. We don't know where the information, like, some people are saying, I've heard people say, oh, if you get the flu shot, that gives you the coronavirus, or the test might be contaminated with coronavirus already before you get it. All these different ideas. We've heard it all. We've heard it all. But we don't know where this information is coming from. And what's interesting to note there is that it's very possible that the same people who are trying to, push their agenda by locking down so-called, first they said 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then they said, oh, we're going to close the schools, and they said, oh, we're going to close the restaurants, and they said, oh, we're going to close, all non-essential businesses, and blah, blah, blah. And then, oh, it's just to the end of May, then it's just to the end of June. Now it's still going on. Many places in the United States, many places in the world. And up to now, we're not really sure if these lockdowns are actually working, because you have other places in the world that are not doing that same thing, and they are okay. I mean, they're not having as bad of a time dealing with Corona as the United States is, or, UK is, or Spain or Italy is. So, all of that is cause for, further investigation. But again, you have people who just say, oh, I know people who died from COVID. Not that, knowing already that people are being marked as COVID deaths who have comorbidities, who have other, things going on with their health. But I know people who died from COVID. That's all I need to know. And then talking about all the crazy conspiracy theories that they heard is basically to say to discredit anyone who's speaking out against what's going on. So the question is, are some of these conspiracy theories being introduced and being promoted by the same people who are also promoting the lockdowns? Do you have the movement and the counter movement, just like you have, every time you have the Democrats, the Republicans, you have one party, you have the opposition party, and you figure both parties, the followers of those parties hate each other, but at the same time, the leaders of those parties probably are, kicking it late at night trying to figure out how they're going to lead us by the nose. So once again, we have the same type of scenario. So the question is, for example, with 5G, some people came out and said 5G is really what's causing the coronavirus. We don't know where that idea came from. We don't know who introduced that to the public consciousness for people to even be talking about it. It could have been Donald Trump. It could have been Bill Gates. Who knows? Could have been Anthony Fauci. We don't know who introduced that idea. Now, when you take the fact that you don't know who introduced that idea, it's very easy to think, oh, it's crazy. That's crazy, And then anytime you hear about 5G, you think about coronavirus. You see, the first impression is the one that lasts. Now, the first impression, a lot of people, some people were talking about 5G and how 5G may be dangerous last year, the last few years. That conversation has been going on. But now that it's reached mainstream awareness, for coronavirus. Now, interestingly enough, And I'm not saying that it is, most likely there is a real coronavirus going on. What I'm saying is that the safety of 5G, or maybe the dangers of 5G, is still an open question. It's still something that we haven't solved yet as a public. It's not. It's still something that we don't really know that much about. We don't know what the long-term effects are going to be. We still don't know what it does. As far as aside from transferring data very, very fast, we don't really know what it's going to do to you know uh, the energies, the electromagnetic energies, and all of this stuff, the radio waves, and all of this. We don't know how it's going to affect health and who knows what else. Okay, but now it's like people already have a bad taste in their mouth about anyone questioning 5G because it's already been linked to coronavirus. People are already saying, oh, it caused coronavirus. And then so anyone who comes up and talks about 5G is going to sound ridiculous right now. You see, these are the kind of things that we're dealing with because of how these conspiracy theories are being introduced. People are saying that all the vaccines that they're talking about introducing for coronavirus are going to include microchips. I don't know where that came from. You see, I'm not saying that I think that I wouldn't say I think that microchips will be included in the vaccine. However, who knows? Who knows? I have no idea. Now, with that being the case, now anyone who talks about vaccines, now some people are going to be thinking, oh, if you talk about the vaccines, you don't want the vaccine, you're anti-vaxxer, you're this, you're that, you think they're going to microchip people, and then you fall into the crazy conspiracy theorist category. That's how, the public gets manipulated by people, who are introducing these counter movements to the movements, and the movements and the counter movements and the counter movements to the counter movements. You see, all of this has to be orchestrated because it's predictable when you're trying to pull a fast one over the public that there's going to be people asking questions. Now, for those who want to, manipulate the public, the question then becomes, how do you make those people who question look crazy? If they can get the people who question to look crazy, then that makes their job easier. They don't have to really suppress any resistance because the public will repress the resistance by itself. And that's what we see happening here. We see people even calling for, keep us locked down, keep us, socially distanced, keep us, imposing more and more laws to restrict travel, to restrict, access to goods and service, to restrict, children's education and public gatherings and all of this. You see, we're calling for that. Recently in Washington, they came out with a law to say if you don't wear your mask in public, you'll be charged with a misdemeanor. And I can imagine that a lot of people are saying, thank you. Those people who break the law should be punished, charge them a fine, so, put them in jail, whatever. Is this the world that we want to build right now? Is this the new normal that we're trying to create over a virus, which once again is not even proven to be as bad as what people were saying it would be, as bad as what the original projection model said it would be when it was originally, kind of new. We were just now finding out about it and scared about it. You see, now it's one thing to be scared, but it's another thing to cause panic amongst the population and put in everybody's mind that this is the new enemy that everyone needs to fight. and that whatever you have to sacrifice in order to fight this unseen enemy is what you have to sacrifice, and that anyone who questions it needs to be censored. Their YouTube page should be taken down, or their video should be, censored. It should have a fact check button by it or something like this. This is where we're at right now. My question to you is, what do you think the reason is? Who do you think is benefiting from everything that's going on right now? Just found out that murder rates are skyrocketing in different cities. Predictably, poor people are suffering, and the more poor people are suffering, the more some people just can't take it and they break out and act crazy. Well, that's all I wanted to say. When you hear a conspiracy theory, when you hear, something that sounds crazy, it might really be crazy, or it might have been a plant, something planted there to discredit anyone who's trying to dissent. But either way, use your discerning mind and think about really what's going on and not just go with your first impression. Thanks for listening. Again, this is Conspiracies with Meridian World News. Take care. Peace.